Hi there, everybody. Michelle Marsland and Marsland Accountants, and welcome to our monthly chat with me and my colleague Thomas Coon. So today we're going to talk about the Let Property campaign and what's happening in the world of Let Property campaign from a Marslands point of view. So, Thomas, who have we been helping this last month then in the Let Property campaign?
So we've been helping a few clients with the Let Property campaign this month. So we've had a couple who predicted that their tax was going to, before any interest or penalties, was going to be around £50,000, and it ended up that their tax due in the end, without any penalties or interest added on, was about 10,000. So and that's a great sort of saving on what they initially thought. So
yeah, so if they're thinking £50,000 tax, by the time we would have added the penalties and the interest, we're probably talking closer to £70,000.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
we've got that down to £10,000. Yeah, in total.
yeah. So
Pretty good saving. I bet. Can you remember roughly how much they paid us or not for that rather magic work?
I think it's about, I think it was around £4,000. So
Not bad
yeah, we've
return on
saved them a lot
investment
more.
then. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
good return on investment of their money, isn't it then? Yeah. And was there anything specifically, Thomas, that we did for them that they hadn't thought of themselves, or just it's because we're so good?
Yeah, I think there was a few things that they sort of missed out. So there are a couple of expenses that they just hadn't realised were allowable when we first spoke to them. So there are a few things that obviously they didn't initially put into their spreadsheet, that once we spoke to them about it, we put that in and helped obviously save them tax over quite a few years. So it's obviously got their tax bill down a lot compared to what they were expecting, which is great. And yeah, hopefully they'll be very happy with the outcome of that.
Yeah. So these are people that basically thought they'd done a good job themselves. So it's not somebody who hadn't put anything together. They had tried to put it together, but we've just found more for them they hadn't thought of.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great. Lovely. That's good to hear. That's what I like to hear, because that's what we're here for, is to help change people's lives. And that's a good way of changing people's lives, isn't it? Saving them, 60 grandish. So hopefully they'll have a good holiday on that or something else, won't they? Okay, so HMRC now. Dare I say that word? Yeah. I hear I had a feedback form you had to give to HMRC. That sounds interesting. I'd have been naught. But did you give them any positive feedback or not?
I gave them positive feedback for like the professional manner that they deal with the cases, because they when you speak to them on the phone, they're professional. Obviously, you'd like to think they would be with working at HMRC, but yeah, they definitely work in a professional manner and are polite to you. It's just some of the things they come back to you with are very picky and frustrating to deal with.
Yeah, and they don't seem to know what they're talking about, I think was what you're coming
Yeah.
across. Really, do they keep changing their mind every time you speak to them? They've changed their mind of what they want you to do this time. Yeah.
Yeah, so we had a client who we submitted up to 2022 because they were prior to April. We then were told by HMRC that 2023 needed to be included, despite their husband being accepted for the exact same disclosure on the same date. So we redid it with 2023 on there, and then they came back to us again and told us to take out 2023 and do it as a tax return. So it's just a back and forth with them that is unnecessary, and that could have been dealt with 3 months ago, and it's now the end of July and we're still sort of dealing with the repercussions of that from April. So it's just a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, and I hear there are still some rejections going on from HMRC recently. So what's the main thing that's been rejected lately?
So recently we've had a few clients who've sort of owed additional tax for child benefit on top of their Let Property campaign things. So if you're earning above £50,000, you might have a child benefit tax charge that you might not have paid in the past, which you may need to pay because of the Let Property campaign. So we've had a few clients where we've included this in the return, and put details of it. However, when HMRC have reviewed it, they've sort of asked for more information, such as like how many children the client has and their income, which they should have anyway. So I don't really know why they're asking that, but yeah, they're just asking a few extra questions that we didn't think were really necessary. But now we've had this happen a few times, we're starting to sort of give a bit more detail when we're doing our disclosures, if they do have child benefit, to sort of answer those questions before they come to us. So hopefully going forward, that'll prevent those rejections coming through.
Fair enough. So really, so people need to understand that if they're using the Let Property campaign, it might still push them over £50,000, because up to then they might have been employed and been under £50,000, so they might not have had to repay the child benefit back. But once they go over £50,000, they have to pay it back. So we're calculating that correctly. We're telling HMRC about it, but HMRC are just asking for more information, really, is what we're saying. Yeah. So now we're telling them that.
Yeah, we're starting to do it now. So hopefully they shouldn't ping them up any.
But we haven't had that problem in the past. But there you go. That's nice, isn't it? But yeah, so that's fine. But it's something. It's not something we're doing wrong. It's just something that basically HMRC have been a bit more, picky about. Fine. Okay. What about possible new clients then? What's been happening with the possible new clients in the Marslands accountancy world?
Yeah, so we've been having some possible new clients come through for the Let Property campaign. So one of them has had a property abroad that they've been renting out, and they've previously declared their UK property, but they hadn't been declaring their foreign property, and they've not realised that you were meant to do both. So they've sort of come to Marslands to try and get that sorted through the Let Property campaign. Another person that we've had come to us, basically they've owned a building that's part shop, part HMO. So HMO that's been sort of split into 6 rooms almost that have been all rented out. So obviously that's something that needs to be declared to HMRC, even like all aspects of it. So also like the shop part hadn't been declared as well, so that goes through the same disclosure service. It will just go under a different sort of banner to that property campaign, but all of it needs to be declared to sort of get that person up to date as well.
Okay, so we're still getting through. And how do people normally contact us to disclose, to talk about their disclosure?
Yeah, so our main sort of source to get in contact with us is through our website. So we've got our Get a Quote Now button on the homepage of our website. We've got a video on our YouTube channel explaining sort of the aspects of how to do that. But it's mainly just sort of some questions to give us basic information to sort of arrange a meeting with you and go through the aspects of your like queries or what you need to any queries you have, and to sort of get the ball rolling with the Let Property campaign and starting to get people into the system.
So it's about 8-10 questions, just so that it basically means we've got a bit of a starting point as who we're talking to, how many years we're talking about, whether you've got mortgages, that sort of thing. So nothing too complicated, and don't worry if you don't know the exact date of starting, and we can find that out later. It's just to give us an idea so we can give you a quote, so that we can give you a rough idea of a quote. But we tend to give a range anyway. So so we haven't any frequently asked questions recently.
No, so we've not really had any sort of new frequently asked questions, but we've had sort of some queries with like the fees and how they work. So as you just mentioned, like when you fill out the form, you get sort of a ranged quote. So that's usually sort of our full service fee that's quoted. We do also have a done with you service that's sort of a slightly reduced fee from what you would get from the form, but you would also get a on top of that, it would be a 40% sort of tax saved figure. So any tax that we save the client, we'll sort of add a portion of that to the fee. but that's sort of with the done with you service. So it's not the full service like you would get with the main quote, but it's sort of it's a sort of hold your hand kind of.
Yeah, normally we say with the done with you service that they've done most of the work, but they don't know understand how to calculate the penalties and the interest. So we then have a look at it and we decide whether there's anything else we think we can claim, and that's when we charge you the extra. If we think there is something we can claim, that's when we'll charge you the extra on top of our basic fee. But only if you go over the basic fee in the first place. So we're just trying to help people here, but we understand that people sometimes, not everybody can afford the full service fee, isn't it, really? So
yeah.
And I believe there's something else you wanted to tell people about this month only.
Yeah, so throughout the month of August, we'll be doing a 10% off offer for any new let property campaign clients who come forward to us. So whatever quote you get from our form, the final quote should be sort of 10% off of whatever that quote is. So yeah, we feel that it's an appropriate time of year to sort of try and help clients come forward with a let property campaign, and yeah, hopefully we can save a lot more of you a lot more tax. So
okay, so that's month of August. Anybody who signs up in the month of August then is going to get 10% off. So we'll carry on quoting what our normal fee is. Even if it's a bespoke quote, we will still quote you our normal fee. But what you'll know is when we do the letter of engagement, we will then be deducting a 10% off just for the month of August for anybody who signs up in August. Well, excellent. So right, so we go. Oh yes, is there anything in the last month that we've been doing that the client has been missing when they've been doing their own let property campaign?
yeah, so we've had a client who didn't have all of their information like sort of for the older years. So they had up to around 2014, but anything past that, since they've been renting, they didn't really have the information for. So with that situation, we basically tried to sort of put the figures in like a rough estimate of what we think is appropriate for that client, and sort of help them where we can with it. It's obviously not going to possibly be 100% because you're not psychic and you don't know every figure that they've had, but what we've done is we've tried to like use our accountancy knowledge and everything to put the figures in that we think is appropriate for that client.
A bit of Marslands magic as well. Right,
yeah.
But yeah, so I think you meant actually the other way around. So prior to 2014, they didn't have the information. They had it between 2014 and now, but the earlier 10 years, they didn't have that information. So yeah, so rather than just sort of go, I can't do this because I haven't got this information, then if you appoint us, we can help you create that information in a manner that should be acceptable to HMRC as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always best to sort of, even if you don't have the information, to make sure that something's declared so that they don't come back to you in a couple of years' time and be like, oh, you didn't tell us you were renting it from 2006 or whatever. So yeah, it's always best to sort of put in as much as you can.
Yeah. Excellent. So our last bit is of our little monthly chat is a testimonial that we've had. So this is an amazing testimonial, I have to say. Thomas, it says, oh my goodness, I've only just seen this. I was away last week with terrible internet, so I didn't pick up my emails. I literally can't believe that figure. It seems ridiculously low. Are you sure the comma's in the right place? Question mark. Yes, they're fine with the out of the day, but basically at the end of the day, they're absolutely speechless. And I tell you what, as well, they were quite anxious that HMRC will still come after them. They said, don't get me wrong, you've done an incredible job beyond all my expectations, but I'm just a little bit worried that because they're trying to collect unpaid tax, that they might come back, and I feel they want a little bit more. So anyway, this is an unbelievable surprise, and I look forward to meeting with Helen later today. So isn't that amazing that somebody is so happy with what you're giving that they actually believe you've got it right?
Yeah, it's always good when you sort of get a positive response like that, because it shows that you've done a good job and that the client's happy. So that's always a good thing to
do. And the great thing is I believe with that client, they were worried that the HMRC would come back to them later, going, no, Marslands are wrong. And what was the result of that particular client?
Yes, they were accepted straight away without any rejections, which is rare at the minute.
It's very rare at the moment to have an acceptance, so that's great. So their worries didn't come true. They've been accepted. It's all been paid off to HMRC, and they're all fine and dandy. Isn't that lovely? So yeah, so brilliant testimonial. Well done, Thomas, and the rest of the team at Marslands. So finally, really, so just a quick summary, really. How can people get in touch with us if they're interested in finding out more about the campaign?
Yeah, so the best way to get in contact with us is to go to marslands.co.uk and to use our Get a Quote Now button on the homepage. Fill out our short form. We have instructions on how to fill out that form on our YouTube channel, which I'm sure will be easy to sort of find if you do need help with that. But yeah, once you've filled out that form, you'll get a quote from our system with sort of a ranged quote. And if there's a bespoke quote needed, then we'll be in touch as soon as we can with sort of an estimated quote for you. And also with that quote, you'll get a chance to book a meeting with any of our specialists who are available at a time that suits you. And you can book that whenever you're free. So.
And if people find that they're looking for that and they can't find a time on that list, they can always email over and say, look, can we do it at this time? Yeah. You know, so sometimes, especially during holiday periods, we might not be available as much as we normally are. So yeah, so just ping us an email instead if you can't find a time that's suitable. So yeah, and in that meeting, we'll tend to go through what's required from them to understand a little bit more about the quote and how going forward everything's going to work. Lovely. Well, thank you very much, Thomas, and I'll see you next month. And look forward to seeing if we have to give anybody 10% off this next month, in the month of August 2024 only. Time to shine.